Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our special edition of Bull Sessions. It is literally our Groundhog Challenge Championship award show. My name is Mark Robertson. I'm founder and managing partner of Manifest Investing, and I'm joined on this show by a number of dear colleagues and friends, including the magnificent mathematician from mid-Michigan, Ken Kabula. Good
Yay!
afternoon, Ken.
Good afternoon, Mark. I'm in a good mood. I visited a really nice club last night, had a great time. Turns out they're only 42 minutes away from where I live, and I had never even known of their existence prior to making the visit. They were one of these silent clubs that we have in our chapter, and even though we try to really reach out to our clubs, we still are finding new clubs. Even after all my 30 some odd years of volunteering, I still find new clubs within the chapter, so that's good.
Well, I'll tell you, one of the side benefits of this effort is we've discovered a couple new clubs for just this year and new entries this year. So you never know where this stuff can lead. And again, it really is all about all of us as a large community leaning on each other for ideas. Speaking of people with good ideas, we're joined also by Kim Butcher from Florida. Good afternoon, Kim.
Well, hello, everybody.
And Kim had a good year, so she's a smiling groundhog this year. Yes.
I am.
Details to follow.
My cheeks aren't as fluffy, but that's okay.
Okay, and we also have Matt Spielman from Houston in the back room. Good afternoon, Matt.
Good afternoon, Mark. Good afternoon, everyone.
And Matt, we want you to know that it's actually sunny, so we can see our shadow in Michigan, and it's actually above freezing.
Yeah, but it's the first time we've seen the sun in about 60 days, so
He doesn't need to know that, Ken.
okay.
We're having a nice week. It's at least till Thursday. I did some painting yesterday because paint's gonna dry really well.
We're actually supposed to break 40 today, so that's really, really warm for February up here. You know that. You lived up here for a long time. So
yeah, we lived off we had a nice subdivision out in the country off a dirt road, so we always dreaded March because it turned into a very thick soup and had kind of a hill with an S curve on it. So it was difficult driving until the graders came by once it dried out.
A very thick soup or a very thick sheet of ice sometimes, I would imagine, Matt.
Yes, that too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Lots of four-wheel drives.
All right, and we are going to talk about some warmer climate participants here in a minute. The person on the upper right is Ann Renly from Lincoln, Nebraska, who happens to be in Arizona now. But we're also going to talk about orange juice and that circle of life we've come to know as the Groundhog Challenge from Groundhog Day to Groundhog Day. If you're not familiar with it, we run a stock picking contest from Groundhog Day to Groundhog Day every year, and we'll be going over those results. Anything else you'd like to add, Ken, other than
I just want to shout out
shoulder?
I want to shout out to Nick. Nick, I'm not ignoring your comment, and when we get to the right slide, I will certainly bring it up and ask Mark that question. So if you can just be a little bit patient, I know that there's a slide coming where it'll be a really good question for us to ask, okay?
Cool. All right. Here's our weekly reminder that Portillo's is not a sponsor of this session, but they should be. Kim's working on that. More on that to follow. But Ken, I believe that is the store you tried to go to.
Is this the one in Sterling Heights, Mark?
It's either Sterling Heights or the one out in your neck of the woods, but it's out there somewhere. That actually is Sterling Heights with that address.
Yeah, that's the one that's open right now.
It is.
They're building one. Yeah, they're building one up north of Plymouth, and that one's not open yet. So.
Okay. It's in your future. All right, here's our standard disclaimer, standard boilerplate. No investment recommendation is intended. You're going to see lots of names and tickers, names of companies and tickers. Please do your own homework, make your own decisions. Everything that we do here during these sessions and our roundtables and any other sessions that we do are intended to share what we've learned from literally over 8 decades of the modern investment club movement. In other words, how to find a stock and how to build a portfolio, how to analyze that stock, and how to maintain and manage a portfolio. So that's what we are here sharing, how we discovered the ideas, how we analyze the ideas, and literally sharing the opportunity to study a stock and consider assuming a stewardship position in that stock. We buy them and we hold them for as long as it makes sense to do so. And that is all defined if you stick around here long enough. If we do own something, we'll try to remember to disclose that. But please do your own homework. And we believe that you're smart enough to form your own opinions, make your own decisions about any investing related resources. So when we talk about Value Line, we're not suggesting that you should run out and buy Value Line. We are suggesting that many of us find Value Line to be a formidable resource in long-term investing. So that decision is up to you. All right, we do have a roundtable webcast that we run once a month. It's generally on the last Tuesday of every month at 8:30 Eastern Time. If you'd like to be added to a reminder for that event where we share 4 or 5 stock ideas and walk through the analysis, please send an email to that to Natalie Kavula. That's nkavula1@comcast.net. If you have any other things that you'd like to kick around, our 2 email addresses are there at the bottom of the page. Anything you'd like to add to that, Ken?
Just that the February roundtable will be one of our exceptions. It will not be on the last Tuesday of the month. The February roundtable is going to happen on March 5th. So if you're putting things onto a calendar, please don't mark the February roundtable on the last Tuesday. Mark it on March 5th instead.
Absolutely. Thanks for that reminder. All right, here's our quick check-in on the market. Again, I see a lot of very familiar names on the list, so we won't spend a lot of time on this other than to say we think this represents the stock market. It's an all of the above index for the stock market as depicted by those green bars that represent the Value Line arithmetic average of all the companies in the Value Line investment survey. And the red dots, zig and zag, along with the orange or yellow dots, are basically the return forecast of the companies that are in either the Value Line universe or the Manifest Investing universe. The Manifest Investing projected annual return is MYPAR, and that's basically the average return forecast for the companies that we cover. You see that on the right, and basically boiling down the forecasts on the right, the average stock out there right now has a return forecast of approximately 10%, plus or minus. Anything you'd like to add to this one, Ken?
No, except that Natalie is processing an awful lot of requests to be added to the list, and she'd be happy to help you do the same thing. So if you get a chance to drop her a line, if you want to be added to our list, she's adding not only members, but she's adding sons and daughters and sisters and brothers and fathers and mothers, and anybody that wants to be added, we'd be glad to add to our list, and they can get access then to all the things we're doing.
I will share that I heard from a very, very dear old friend last week who has attended literally dozens of roundtables, and he wrote to me asking to be added to the list. And I'm just reminded that as all of us gain years of experience, reminders are a good thing to get in the mail for where we're supposed to be and when. Good stuff. All right, so let's go ahead and get right into it. This is our Groundhog Challenge. It's the 17th year of results. We are starting a brand new one as of yesterday. And the figure there on the left, in addition to Punksy Phil, is Vince Lombardi. And Vince is there for the 170 of us that just barely finished short of the top of the heap. And we didn't lose, we just ran out of time. And Ken usually makes a comment about the scorekeeper and how that can be a factor, but hey.
I'm not mentioning who the scorekeeper is, Mark. I'm keeping that anonymous.
Okay, that's probably a good thing at this point. So we actually give out 3 awards every year. We've been doing it for 17 years. The first is the individual award winner from Lincoln, Nebraska, Ann Renley. We'll cover the details. The second is for a group or a club entry, and that's the Orange County Model Club. It's a better investing club out of Orange County, California. And they just won for the second time in 4 years, so we'll be talking about them. I think there may be a couple of them in the audience also. And then we give what we call a Rhino or an institutional or a celebrity award. And John Kimmel of Wichita, Kansas, he puts out a Brookfield Digest, which is kind of like a compendium of people that put out recommendations, and he shares ideas and kind of goes through them. That's what the Brookfield Digest is. It's a subscription service. So he qualifies as a rhino from that respect. But John has actually won the individual championship, and he's a member of an investment club that's also won. So he's like a triple crowner out there. So we're pretty proud of John also. So let's get into it. Here is our Groundhog Creed. And again, we believe that the modern investment club movement is pretty powerful. And the teachings of Graham Babson, that's David L. Babson, and George Nicholson give us some pretty good ideas. And Ken, I brought this back just for you. That coterie word or cotiers made you uncomfortable the last time I used it, but it remains on the slide.
Well, coterie is correct, Mark, and the other one is cotier is the way it's pronounced. So they're both correct. You're using them both correctly. Yeah.
Okay. I'm trying to be careful here because apparently I was treading on dangerous ice the last time I did it. So we want to be careful. But
well,
I
we
do
just
think
want to pay homage to the French. We want to pronounce their words correctly. That's all.
Oh, I can't even go there today.
All right.
All right. I don't know. I actually, since Ken won't take me to Punxsutawney, I actually did tune in for the live broadcast, and it was kind of charming to watch the guys in their tuxedos I told Ken that I want to be the royal tote of the rug. There's actually a guy who brings the piece of carpet that they set Punxsy Phil down on. It's a piece of red carpet, and there's a person in a tuxedo carrying this piece of red carpet. So it was good, clean fun. And of course, he gave a favorable forecast, and he is now 128 for 128, I believe, or something like that. So good stuff. He's our inspiration. Well, here's the results from everybody for 2023. We did okay. We did beat the institutional rhinos. We call them rhinos because, again, they tend to hang out in packs, and it's just our affectionate term for the Wall Street analysts. The Wilshire 5000 did come in at 18.6. We're going to spend a lot of time talking about the Magnificent Seven and that kind of stuff. But you can see that the average return for all of us participating was 10% versus 18. So we did underperform. That's not the end of the world. And again, we'll talk as we go on about longer term perspectives, longer term results. And again, about 50% of the selections that we made actually did outperform the market. So I think that number, it might seem a little bit low or disappointing, but the fact of the matter is, if you can pick stocks that beat the market 50 to 55% of the time, you're going to see a lot more detail on this. You can actually do quite well. And especially if you're out there as a fairly newcomer to investing, or if you know somebody who gets frustrated by being wrong every once in a while or being turned down on the dance floor. Just got to remember that does happen. What are your thoughts on here, Ken?
Well, I think that we have so many charts to demonstrate this this truism right here that we should just continue, Mark. I think that when we say 50%, people think that's a really low percentage, but that's an actually extremely respectable percentage when you consider the average investor is only picking 30 to 40% of the time correctly, and even in the normal stock market, a number under 50 is considered average for everybody.
Right, and that final comment on there that if you look at the Motley Fool results, and they've been tracking this for a number of years, what you typically see is living witness to chasing hot stock tips and that sort of thing, which the average investor will do. They'll hear it at the barbershop or the hair salon, or some people will refer to it as a brother-in-law tip. If you do that, or if you act on stuff that you're in the news.
Or they heard about it in last year's contest, okay,
or
and didn't bother to check out what's the prognosis for the future.
Or on CNBC.
Yep, absolutely.
If you hear it there and you chase any of those things, one of my favorite things is people talk about I'm buying X because Warren Buffett did. Well, if you know that news, chances are that stock is already 10 to 20% higher than it was when Warren bought it. So don't buy what he's bought, buy what he's buying. And interesting way to look at things. All right, here's a look at our track record over the trailing 17 years. We have had success in terms of beating the market 9 out of 17 times as a group. And we're on a bit of a losing streak, Ken. I think it's time to shake off the cobwebs and have another winning season, because we had 4 straight wins from 17 to 20. And the last 3, we've come in a little bit short as a group. But collectively, and this is what really matters, the long-term perspective, if you total up all 17 years, the results for Groundhog Nation is 12.8 versus 9.7. That's actually pretty good. Any other thoughts here, Ken, other than
Well, let's get out there and put in good portfolios. Okay, it's all closed right now. Although I bet you'd take an entry from almost anybody that got it to you with it by the end of the day, right?
Yeah, within the next day or so, and then we usually give clubs a couple weeks of grace period because of the monthly meeting format for many of them. So, yeah, we've got a fair number in the batch, but we are a very welcoming group. All right, so here are our market beaters for 2023. Literally, what happened to $1 million Groundhog dollars invested 1 year ago, and roughly a third of the participants beat the market over the last year. So the 46 of them, there were 173 entrants last year. 46 of them actually came in above the Wilshire 5000. Including Ann and John Kimmel, who we've already mentioned, and the Orange County Model Club that is shown there. So you can see Ann came in first with almost 1.8 million at the end, generating an annualized return, and again, dividends are included, 78.7. And you can just let your eye travel down the list. Orange County as the group champion, checked in at number 8 with a 50% return for the year. And there is John Kimmel down there at 18th. And just like I've been telling you guys all along, all of those bolded entries, there's a huge pack of investment clubs, right there at the level of market beating performance. Ken is a member of virtually all those clubs.
No, just one of them, Mark, that's listed.
But there's some fairly well-known names, some of the voices that you hear at our programs at the top of that page. And again, congratulations to beating the market is not something to take lightly. Last year's champion Space Coast actually got up to about 30th a couple of weeks ago, and then they faded at the stretch. Space Coast finished 43rd, but they had won the previous 2 years, as we'll cover here in a few minutes. Anything else you'd like to add there?
No, good slide, Mark. Good slide.
I do want to reach out to one of our favorite damsels, Kim, who finished near the top of the pack this year.
Yes, I just got my furniture delivered, so timing is everything.
You didn't spend any Groundhog dollars on that furniture, I hope.
No. I found something at, we stock pickers like stocks that are, like what, 75% off. I found, oh, wait a minute. Found my furniture at 75% off.
Okay, we'll let you go back to work. All right, here we go. All right, so here's a little context. The Wilshire 5000 did check in at 18.6% for the year. And just wanted to share what I think is some fairly powerful context here, Ken. That may seem like a relatively low number to have roughly a third or maybe closer to a quarter of the participants beating that 18.6. But when you stack it up versus, and I didn't go to Morningstar, I usually do. I was lazy. I asked the question, how many funds out of the funds covered by Y charts actually had returns greater than 18.6%? And it's less than 5,000, so it's it's approximately 7%. So I think that gives a pretty powerful context for at least the environment that we're operating in over the last year.
And when we're talking about funds, I think we're talking about traditional mutual funds, but also exchange traded funds, right, Mark?
Yeah, and they may throw in some of their special funds that some of the brokerage firms put together. And the thing I should be clear about is those funds can invest in anything. So you could have commodity stuff in there, you could have cryptocurrencies, real estate, you name it. There's probably even some private type stuff in there. So again, that is the results achieved by a group of professional investors, rhinos, that can invest in anything. So, and they're our friends, the canary in the coal mine there. All right, so Ken, here's a question you asked me just a couple days before the contest came to an end. So I'll let you frame it.
Well, I was very interested in where the contest stood on the Wednesday before the contest ended, and Mark got this list out for me and sent this to me. Basically, I was doing some research on how many of the beating portfolios did not contain the Magnificent Seven, and we're going to see that the results of that research in just a moment. But when I checked this list and then looked at the final list, I noticed that there was a lot of movement on certain people. I mean, moving as much as 5 or 6 or more places in just a 2-day period. And my question originally was why? And then before I even got the answer, I answered it myself. Remember that on the day before the contest ended, Meta took a move more than 20% higher on that February 2nd, the last day of the contest, and Amazon took a move somewhere in the neighborhood of 5, 6, 7% higher on the same day. So if you had either one of those stocks in a fairly small number of stocks portfolio, then your portfolio could have made a huge move in one direction or the other. So I'm just drawing that to your attention and then answering the question before it's asked about why some people are at a certain place on this list and then suddenly are at a much different place on the list we're going to see in 3 or 4 slides. Mark, we got a question from Nick out in the audience. Nick wanted to know why he can't spot a certain person on the list here. And I'm going to use her name, and I hope she won't be upset about it, but he's looking for Marie Frank's entry, and he can't find it, and he thinks that she had a portfolio containing a couple of stocks that really took off like rockets. So can you help us out a little bit with that?
I'll have to take a look at it. I'm not sure where I thought the comment that he was making was with respect to this year. Because I had noticed that also, that she had a couple of them that took off in the first day. So I'd have to look and see what might have caused that. We're going to have a slide here in a few minutes that shows all 170. What do you got, Matt?
I happen to be looking. I bet you guys could guess it. And again, Pilot Marie can comment if she wants. Clearfield is there.
Ah, okay.
I'm not going to say anything because I've beat up on them enough already.
I will again apologize for bringing Clearfield to the attention of anybody. Okay.
Yeah, we'd like to take Clearfield out back and beat it senseless, but there's actually a few people that picked it this year expecting a turnaround. So we'll see. We'll hope for the best for them.
Marie is with us today, Mark, and she's answering that her standing dropped down to somewhere in the 70s. And yes, in fact, we know that she had some rockets, but she also had a rocket that never took off and in fact fell over on the gantry. So
we actually figured that we would have almost as a group been pretty close to that 18 without Clearfield, because that was the most commonly selected stock a year ago. The other thing I want to point out before Ken answers the question.
My only saving grace is, Mark, that I picked Clearfield after last contest started. So if you pick Clearfield before me, then it's all on you for picking it. Okay.
The other point I want to make, because many of you guys have already learned this, if you're interested in winning, your probability goes up. Notice that all of these are in the 5 to 8 stock range. And then you can actually see graphically here that fewer stock selections is generally a pretty good idea in a contest like this. So the ones up at the top have 5, 6, or 7 entries, and then these are more diversified here. They're also perhaps a little bit less likely to win probabilistically. So good, clean fun. So here's the answer to Ken's question. And I think this was posed by, weren't you upset with somebody on CNBC?
It wasn't that I was upset. It was that I thought that they were making a ridiculous statement. They made a statement that you could not perform in a portfolio this year if you didn't have a Magnificent Seven stock. And here's 32% of our 44 portfolios that beat the market. A third of them, a little bit less than a third of them, did not contain one of those Magnificent Seven, and I've listed them up there at the top of the slide for you. 3 of the clubs were doing perfectly fine without a Magnificent Seven stock, and then 2 of our roundtable folks, Mark and Kim both, put in portfolios without one of those 7 stocks, and some pretty august names on the list of better investing personnel also did the same thing. I noticed Pat Donnelly down there, who was BIVA board chairperson for a lot of years, coming up, beating the market and having not one of those 7 stocks. So I thought that it was a typical kind of comment, I think, coming from an analyst who doesn't believe that amateurs can ever beat the market, that they need the help of a professional in order to achieve returns that are exceptional. And I'm just not sure that's a valid statement to make or a valid feeling to hold.
And yeah, I added the groundhog. We don't need no stinking Magnificent Seven. Badges, no stinking badges. All right, so let's go ahead and put things in further context, looking at 17 years of champions, going all the way back to Steve Parham in 2007. He was from Knoxville, Tennessee, and he had a stock picking dog named Bo. So that's where this all started. The second year of the contest, I edged out a very formidable competitor on the last day. Made the mistake of winning my own contest, and that sets you up for all kinds of criticisms. Year number 3, Paul Witt had the best result ever in the history of the contest, and he's still benefiting.
But he was also responsible for the Witt rule, wasn't he?
He was, because he switched into, it was a year when we allowed some switching to be done, and he switched everything into a single stock, or pretty close to that anyhow. And
well,
that's
no,
where
it was one stock. It was just a single stock that he won with. And now we have the Witt rule where we're not going to do any switching and we're going to have at least 5 stocks in the portfolio. So.
Yeah, but he definitely benefited from that. And then, of course, our damsel Ann Manning from Houston, she won it in a photo finish between 5 ladies that were all within like 0.2% of each other that particular year. And then you can go up the list. I'm not going to read them all. Of note, Hugh McManus has won this contest twice as an individual, as has Anna Gombar from Holly, Michigan. And good stuff. And I also note that our last 3 champions have been ladies. So guys, up your game.
All right.
Although Kim is pretty focused on winning one of these, so we'll see what happens. All right, here's how Ann did it. She did it, and she was among the masses that included Ardelyx in the portfolio. If you're not familiar with Ardelyx, it's a company that has been tracked by us for a number of years. Hugh McManus is a pharmaceutical scientist in his day job, and he mentioned it, and he actually selected it for the roundtable, I want to say approximately 6 years ago. And it's been quite a ride since then. And that there's a lot more to that story. But obviously from Groundhog Day a year ago to Groundhog Day last week, pretty good run from $3 to almost $9. So that's been a pretty powerful influence in a number of the portfolios. In fact, if you look at that slide a couple slides ago, anybody color coded in orange had Ardelyx in their portfolio. So this is definitely people at the top were powered by Ardelyx quite a bit. Meta, she wasn't too concerned about some of the other people at the top on the last day because she had Meta also, as well as Amazon, which had a couple really nice days at the end of the run. And 5 out of the 6 selections actually did pretty well year over year.
Mark, our audience is just so right on point all of the time. Could you go back a single slide? 2 slides, I'm sorry.
One more?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And we're going to have to pull your name off this list, Mark, okay? You invested in TQQQ.
Well, that's not a Magnificent Seven stock, Ken.
Well, it holds the Magnificent Seven from what
right.
we've heard, you know.
All right.
And I eliminated the groundhogs or the rhinos that held the Magnificent Seven from this list. So I have to eliminate you from this list as well for buying into that TQQ as a way to try to get around holding the Magnificent Seven directly. Okay. So it's a yellow flag, Mark.
Guilty as charged. I now will be crying myself to sleep tonight.
Okay, great. Let's go on.
While I hug my 4th place trophy. All right. So Ann checks in at nearly 80% for the year, 5 out of the 6 beating the market, and her 5-year performance comes in at 11.5%. Pretty respectable. Good stuff. And when we toss around the oranges and cherries in a few minutes, she's probably going to want to throw some corn onto the pile. Also, Nebraska corn. All right. Anything else here, sir?
It's Mark, is the heavy type a winner and the light type in the last column one that didn't make any money during the year? Is that the way that it's working? Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay.
What I have to do is go through, in this case, 6 stocks invested means that she started with 166,000 and change in every one of those stocks. So 166 times that 1 plus 18.6%. So these 5 actually beat that number, whatever that number is. I can tell you what it is if I look on my cheat sheet here. It'd be about 198,000 would outperform the market. So this one didn't quite make it. That's where the 5 out of 6 comes from. And that's a good question, Ken.
It did make money, but it didn't beat the market. That's why it's
it made
note. Yeah. Okay.
It made 14,000 year over year. So again, but didn't beat the market. But I'm sure Ann's happy. She'll take it. All right, here again, we're not going to go through these, but if you get a copy of the slides, you can go through if you want to spot your name on the list. All 173, I believe, are back to back here. Yes, they are on these 2 slides. So you can see from top to bottom. The thing that really kind of warms my heart a little bit, because I know many of the people involved in this are investing in stocks that they actually own also. But if you go back 3, 4, or 5 months, there were very few people over 1 million. And we might have had like as few as 10 at one point. And notice that everybody on here is over 1 million. You see Marie's in there at number 80. So she had a lot of good ones, plus Clearfield, apparently.
So even with Clearfield, you can still make 100,000 in a year, right? Not 1 million. Okay.
Yeah, and the Mid-Michigan Model Club.
Absolutely.
Defending champion.
We didn't have Clearfield, so.
So again, you can go over the list, and a lot of very familiar names. The asterisk after any name refers to a championship. So 1 is a single championship. You can see that Space Coast, which had won the last 2 years, actually came in at 43rd. They beat the market again this year. But like I said, they were up in this range until the last couple of weeks, and they didn't have a good finishing kick. Somebody who did have a great finishing kick was Ginger Williams. She was one of the few people that didn't have Ardelyx at the top of this list. And Ann had me watching her fairly closely in the last day of the contest. All right, and here's the rest of them. And again, the $1 million threshold actually stretches all the way down to 121st. And as we have remarked many times, it is actually more typical for the value line arithmetic average to beat the Wilshire 5000. You can see they came at 116th here versus 47th. That's weird. Blame it on the Magnificent Seven if you must. But again, as we have been talking for the last several months, that just portends more opportunity in the medium and small stocks, in our opinion. And that certainly has kind of come around to reality here lately. Kathy did come in at 104th. She started day one in last place, by the way, for this year. And Ken, I know you're afraid of the monkey. The monkey actually did come in at 161st.
Oh, so he beat some people. Okay, I see. All
A
right.
couple people down there that had unfortunate years. Somebody's got to be down there, though.
And that's when you make a list. That's the way it works.
It's my name has been down there. In fact, my name is down there right now. We're not going to talk about that. All right. Okay, here's a moment for John Kimmel. Again, John's out of Wichita, and he's actually a champion and advocate for club investing in the Kansas area. He's a volunteer for the local chapter out there. And John, his compendium of investment advice and stock selections for further study, won for the second time. And you can see there's some pretty elite company on this list. The one that I'm cheering for, I'll confess, I want Abby Joe to win one of these because she's had pretty solid results for 17 years, but has never won amongst the rhinos. So we just have some fun keeping track, and it's kind of fun to see how well we keep up with them in the field. So congratulations again, John. And as I mentioned before, John has been an individual champion, as is reflected here back in 2016, and then a couple times here with the Rhino Award, and then he actually had a club, which won the contest a couple years ago also. So good fun. All right, just trying to stir things up here a bit. I want to test a theory that people who drink orange juice are good investors, and trying to stir up a little bit of a cage match between the Florida oranges and the California oranges. So I'm just trying to have some fun. I actually ran into this while I was looking up Orange County stuff. So that's the battle, and here's why. You can see that this year's champions, Orange County Model Club, out of Orange County, California, winning for the second time in 4 years. They won back here in 2020. And then that group out of Florida, also on Orange Capital of the World, is right there along with our friends. And this is one of Ken's investment clubs, everybody. Mid-Michigan Model Club, co-champions from 2021. But just want to say that apparently it's a good idea to be associated or consume oranges and cherries, at least for the last 3 or 4 years. Of other notable clubs that we've talked about from time to time, the Bower City Ladies out of Janesville, Wisconsin, have won 3 times. And Susan Michelik and her group are in it again this year. And here's Broad Assets, which they were the first 3-time winner in any category, and they are back this year. So we'll be cheering them along. And speaking of cherries, the Northern Traders are there, Traverse City, Michigan. And this is another one of Ken's clubs down here. I mean, when we say he's in more than one club, we mean it. And we can prove it with the receipts. Anything here, Ken, that you'd like to point out other than I'm sure that the Michigan appearance is on here?
No, the orange folks are really impressive. They do a beautiful job in stock picking. And the only club that I would mention that has never actually won but always vies up near the top are the Cool Kids out of Traverse City. That's one of the clubs that always stands in first, second, third, fourth place in our contest, and they always stand in the top 15 or so in your contest. So
Oh yeah, we're gonna hear from them here in a minute.
yeah, give them a mention as well.
And this is John Kimmel's actual club, the Plymouth Club out of Wichita. So he's there again. All right. Well, here's a look at the entry from Orange County for 2023. They also had Ardelyx, but they hit a pretty good home run with CrowdStrike. Google obviously did pretty well. This is a roundtable favorite for quite some time. Ticker symbol OLED. And what do you like about this one, Ken?
Well, I like that they've picked stocks that I don't think are all swinging for the fence. I don't mind seeing a 9 or 10 stock portfolio where you're making one big swing for the fence. But when I see 5 or 6 of those kind of stocks in a portfolio, I'm wondering if the contest is serving its purpose. I think there's some great ideas on this list. I mean, Cy just presented InMode at the last roundtable, and there's a number of folks in our audiences that think that InMode is quite a great idea. We've liked OLED for years. They focus on liquid LED screens, screens that can be bent and shaped and used in all different kinds of applications. They're the giant in the room when it comes to screens. And of course, we've also liked consistently Alphabet at the round table and in almost any portfolio we'll put together.
Yeah, and I think the thing to watch for many of these clubs, and in fact, the entire dashboard summary will be out here in a few days when Kurt probably posts it this weekend, so you can actually see what all the individuals and clubs have chosen. Pay attention to this number. What type of growth number are they picking for their portfolios, and can they maintain quality while they do it? And between the growth and the quality and the return forecast, I think we'll see some fairly interesting tendencies with many of these clubs. I took a phone call just yesterday from a relative newcomer that was quite impressed with. He had done a little bit of research back into some of the stuff we've talked about over the last few months, and he was very impressed with how many quality or core companies were in many of these portfolios. And I explained to him that, in many cases, some of these clubs, like Susan's club out of Janesville, they're actually turning in clubs or stocks that they own. And I know that you do that also, Ken. And
every single portfolio that I turn in from my clubs, Mark, is nothing more than taking the top 5 or 6 or 7 stocks listed by par value and turning them in. They're coming from actual portfolios. Occasionally, they will contain a pounce list stock because we embed those stocks right with our actual portfolio. But for the most part, they're actual stocks that the clubs own, and they just happen to be the top 5, 6, 7 performers out of a portfolio that usually is somewhere between 12 and 16 stocks.
Right. So my response to him was, it's okay to, swing for the fences, as you just mentioned a few minutes ago. This is definitely not a core investment. And sometimes they work out nicely, and other times they work out just the opposite. So this 361,000 is a wonderful thing. I have seen instances where that has been 6,000 instead of 360,000. So that's what you're playing. Very few people that have been in this contest over the years that do a whole lot of picking, 5 Ardelyxes have done very well. A lot more striking out. So that kind of sets the stage for talking about longer term performance. So let's do that. What you're looking at here is literally our career or all time or since inception type statistics. And this happens to be, we're going to look at the top 47 because they are the top 47 who actually have a positive relative return. In other words, beating the market for their career. So what you see listed here is a number of entries from all the different classifications. You can see their results for 2023 if they participated here. And then these two columns will basically be their annualized total return during the years that they participated versus the years in the market. The number of years is over here. So you can see that Ken and I and a couple other people have actually been in this for all 17 years of the contest. Special note to people like Ellen Hall down here that have been in it also for quite some time, participating virtually every year. And so you can see from top to bottom. So this is number 21 through number 47 of the all-time companies. Notice that you see some news. Like here's Ralph Futch checking in at number 34. He's brand new this year. And the reason he's new is we require 3 years of participation to qualify for this list. So also Laura Scott is on the list and Fraser Hunt. They've actually been in the contest for 3 years, and they have a return which has beaten the market over those 3 years. So from top to bottom, you can start to get a feel. As I was sharing with you, Ken, earlier, the average number of years of participation is now up at 8. So you can count on many of these people to be back in the mix, challenging for next year's title. But,
I want to make the point, Mark, that a lot of people will discount the value of that relative return column. They'll look at the numbers and they'll say, 2, 1.8, 1.1, numbers like that, and they'll kind of. A lot of folks don't have a real good grasp of what those kind of numbers can do to a long-term portfolio. I mentioned already that I visited a club last night, and one of my examples that I used with that club happens to be a club that I belong to that has a relative return as of yesterday of 2.2% since 1995.
nice.
That means that's a long period to have a positive relative return for. And that was not met with a whole lot of enthusiasm by the guys that were at the meeting last night until I showed them what that meant in the difference in dollars between putting my money into an index fund and putting it into the club. For that particular portfolio that I was speaking of, it made a difference of $800,000 over that time period. And when you start talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars, you grab people's attention. And suddenly 2% became something that they'd like to move towards. I always ask clubs when I first walk into a meeting, how are you doing? And most clubs can't tell me because most clubs don't bother to benchmark their returns like we do on almost everything that we put in front of you. I want you to urge, if you're in a club and you haven't seen a benchmark return, maybe for the last 5 years or for your entire existence, if you're using iClub accounting, or if you're using Bivio accounting, those two reports can be written in a matter of seconds. And I'm being literal, not, I'm actually meaning seconds. You can do it in 2 or 3 seconds in front of a group. You can write the report and you can see how you're doing, and you can change the time period and also change what your benchmark is. We're benchmarking against VTSMX, which is the Vanguard Total Stock Market Index, but you can benchmark against almost any other index you want to choose. If you want to choose S&P 500, you can write the report to benchmark against that, and you can get percentages, and they'll break it down into dollars either lost to an index fund if your relative return is negative, or dollars gained from the index if your relative return is positive. Don't be ignorant about your benchmarked returns. And if they're not where you'd like them to be, that becomes a really nice goal for you to aim at for the next 3 or 4 years to raise those benchmarks. And you don't always have to benchmark over the entire history like we do many times. Benchmarking over the last 5 years and then comparing it to where you were a year ago and 2 years ago, that's an awful nice way to see if you're making progress in a goal, which is to beat the market. So I'm giving you helpful hints, clubs, on how to be able to answer that question, so that when I visit your club and ask how you're doing, you can tell me directly without hee-hawing around and giving me an answer that doesn't really answer the question in the first place.
Yeah,
It's good stuff. Good stuff.
there's another message here, and I'm going to get a tiny bit weepy here, I think. I mean, I just got a letter a couple days ago from a club that had been struggling several years ago, not beating the market, probably not coming close. And they went on to explain that their exposure to this community, to these names, to the ideas generated by this group of people, their return right now is 16% versus 12 for the market. So that's plus 4 over the last 5 or 7 years, whatever the number was. That's a really powerful difference to make in the investing experience of many people. So you're going to see names. Any one of these people on this list comes to me and says, hey, I have an idea. This looks kind of cool. I'm definitely going to check it out. And you can see Cy and Ann and the names that you hear at the round table. They're not at the round table by accident. So keep that in mind. And then on the far right, that column is the accuracy of their selections. In other words, how many of their selections have beaten the market over the time of this contest. So again, these are career statistics. And it was Matt Spielman and his work with Joel Tillinghast last year that pointed out that the real magic number here is 55. If you can hit 55, you can set the world on fire. And notice that there's a few people on here that actually do achieve those levels. So you're seeing some 40s and low 50s and that type of thing. I want you to notice between this page and then our top 20 all time. Again, those accuracy numbers, there are some that are a little bit south of 50, but there's an awful lot of 55 to 60s on here. So here you go. That Orange County Model Club with two Groundhog championships in the 3 years that they've been in the contest. Now check in with this number. Obviously, they've only been in the league, so to speak, 3 years, so more at bats will be telling. But what a start! What a start! And Ken, here's your club you were just talking about. They haven't won it yet, but they're never far from the top of the leaderboard. It's like
Absolutely.
they and
Yep.
Herb are joined at the hip, and you'll see that in a minute. But Herb and the cool kids are always at the top of these lists, so we're always intrigued by the ideas that we hear coming forth from these people. I mean, the Broad Assets Club, they're 3-time champions that kind of inspired us to look at launchpad investing. We'll be talking more about that at a future session.
For you folks that are new to investing or just beginning the journey, or if you have sons and daughters that are just beginning the journey, or maybe brothers or sisters, I want Mark to go back one slide, and I want to tell you a single list each year that you might want to take a look at. Look at what Eddie Elfbein's accuracy rating is.
Yeah,
and if nothing else, if you don't look at Elfenbein's accuracy rating, look at his list of stocks that he puts out once a year and then doesn't touch that list during the year. If you don't at least look at that and make sure that you've done a thoughtful analysis of most of the companies on the list, if you don't do that, then you have no excuse for not being able to eventually start to beat the market, because Elfenbein's list is a treasure of accurate stocks that will help you beat the market. 81% is just, in my mind at least, it's unheard of as far as accuracy is concerned among stock analysts.
He's routinely beating the market. Again, that CWS stands for Crossing Wall Street, and you can actually buy into an exchange-traded fund, same ticker, CWS. My wife and I actually have shares of CWS. So when we're feeling lazy, we we lean on somebody like Eddie to take care of some of our money. So, and we're certainly happy with that.
I certainly think, Mark, that Elfenbein's list, which has it come out for 2024 yet, or
yeah.
are we still waiting for it? It has come out.
He's on a calendar year, so we've had features on it at Manifest.
Maybe that list needs to be another list that we choose a buttonwood stock from. You know?
Okay, well, I'm going to put that on the agenda to add to the shopping here in the next few weeks. We'll talk more about that in a few minutes. So again, a lot of familiar names on here, really great sources of ideas. Here, Ken, this is the reason that I had that in my portfolio with the Magnificent Seven. It's the only benchmarker rhino in this list. And again, great list of names. Welcome back, Kim, to the top of the leaderboard. Lots of good stuff here. One of my favorite things to point out on this particular page, Shelley has not participated in a few years, but her 5.6% relative return came during a really challenging period in the stock market. So her 7% was actually quite good at the time. And it just shows, not all markets are created equally. And she actually excelled during a very challenging time in the market. That's why we do the relative return thing. That's the only way you can compare a stack of numbers like this. You got to have that relative return thing down. And I do want to welcome Phil McPherson, Space Coast Florida, those two-time champions. I have a feeling that I would just love to sit in on a joint meeting, Ken, between these two clubs, Orange County, California, and the equivalent of Orange County, Florida. Be kind of fun to watch. And
maybe we'll spark an idea from somebody in those clubs to do such a thing. I know that both those clubs occasionally meet online, so it wouldn't be a difficult thing to pull together.
Ooh, that could be. Oh, that's an interesting thought.
Yeah.
So again, welcome to Phil, and then also one of the a very special contributor from our chapter in Michigan, Charlene Hansen. Charlene is exquisite, elegant investor, and always a good source of ideas. So welcome, Charlene.
I got a story to tell Mark about the QQQ. I sit on a stock picking panel for my fraternity. We run a charitable foundation to help undergraduates pay for some fraternity costs, but also for them to travel to educational events that the National Fraternity runs, and to help them afford the hotel rooms and the meals and the things that go into that kind of thing. And about 4.5 years ago, at our homecoming, at the annual meeting of this foundation, I pitched a very polite fit about taking the $5,000 or so that they had sitting in a traditional bank account, by the way, and saying that we needed to put that into the stock market, and meeting with all kinds of resistance from the number of brothers that happened to be in the room. In order to quell the resistance, I had to tell them that I would give them an equal amount of cash that they held in the bank to hold in trust until the other portfolio reached $20,000. I got all my money back not real quickly, but I got all my money back since that time. And this has been just one heck of an outperformer, because I basically told them, take the $5,000 and put it into triple Qs. And that's what they did. And I've made believers out of a large group of very traditional fraternity brothers that were quite content with receiving less than 1% in a traditional bank account for a charitable foundation that was supposed to be raising money to help people.
Yeah, the difference between 1 and 14 is escape velocity for sure.
Significant.
Great stuff. So you can see that this one did sneak in. It's the only institutional, in this case, benchmark that made the top of the list, but not a bad place to be. All right, this is probably one of my favorite slides ever. You're basically looking at a whole bunch of really nice, smart people who simply want you to do better as investors. And you can see all the Knights of the Round Table and Kim are on here, along with Damsel and Manning. And these are all people that have qualified either through an individual championship or operating above the 5% magic objective for a while. And you can see Bo down there at the bottom of the page. Kind of got things started. And the cool kids on the right with Herb. That's Herb in the pink shirt. And yes, for those of you wondering, those are Jim Gallagher's feet from the Space Coast Club in Florida. So again, clubs, community, ideas, that's what we try to be about here. And you can put faces to some of the voices that you hear from time to time. So welcome to the group, Ann Renly, Orange County Model Club from California, and the Space Coast Model Club from Florida. Anything you'd like to add there, sir?
Mark, we're getting a comment from Dwight out in our audience here, and Dwight is talking directly to the cool kids, and he's reminding them that they don't have to win an individual stage in the Tour de France to finish first in the general classification, and he's suggesting that they keep on doing what they're doing, and they're not far from first right now, and they have a shot at it. So Herb and the cool kids, listen to Dwight, and we're very, very proud of you here in mid-Michigan.
Good stuff. And so a lot of the names and faces that you've heard over the years. I do want to take a moment and to recognize over here on the upper left, we did lose Ruby this year. Ruby was one of the ringleaders of the Broad Assets Club and just a genuine gift to the St. Louis area and the field of investing. So Ruby, we do miss you, but your club is being carried on. Fred Tunnies has been getting involved in this stuff. So Fred, maybe they'll let you come to one of their meetings and this guy won't be by himself back here. And again, the three-time champions, Broad Assets and Bauer City, that deserve special recognition. The individual here in the middle is Susan Michalik, who's been a part of our programs for many, many years. All right. All right, so I think we'll leave with just pointing out what we end one season, we start the next. The Groundhog Challenge 18 is the 2024 contest. What you're looking at on the screen are the top 40 most frequently chosen positions by the contestants this year, and then a few extra sprinkles down there at the bottom. I do have to point out to Kevin Gologly that Portillo's did make the list by being in 4 or 5 different portfolios. So that's
Mark,
for you, Kevin.
Phil Crocker has his hand in the air, and I'm going to unmute him. And Phil, go ahead.
Go ahead, Phil.
Sorry about that. I must have done that inadvertently.
Inadvertent hand.
Well,
okay.
Still good to hear from you, sir.
It wouldn't
Good to be
be
here.
it wouldn't be a bull session without at least one inadvertent hand, Phil. Thanks a lot.
We'll have to get a picture of Phil's feet on one of these slides here pretty soon,
All right.
because he is a New Jersey transplant that now lives down in Florida. So anyhow, from top to bottom, Google was the most frequently chosen company from, as you can see here. And I did get quite a few comments, Ken, asking me to speculate on who is this year's Clearfield. So maybe we have some fun with that.
In other words, we're going to have a short contest, right?
So anyhow, good stuff. Okay, here's how they shake out. If you take the top 16 and you slap them into a dashboard, create their own Groundhog dashboard, and pretty good looking portfolio, Ken.
Absolutely, and there's no excuse for anybody out there not having ideas. Just these 16 stocks right here are great ideas to start with. They're not all winners. They're not all in the buy zone, but they do give you a good foundation for research. There's small, medium, and large stocks on this list, and any one of them could be the next. What is the next? The next Ardelyx or the next? What came in second in the contest this year behind Ardelyx, Mark? Do you know?
As far as the top, I'd have to look. I do not know who was number
Okay.
2.
All right. but it's a great list and we've done presentations on almost every one of the stocks on this list at our roundtable within the last year.
Yeah,
I'm
between
going up and down the list, and I'm not seeing any non-roundtable stock on there, Mark.
most of them are roundtable, and some of them have been covered at bull sessions or with the Buttonwood portfolio. So we'll be talking more about some of these, and we're going to use this as a shopping list for the Buttonwood portfolio the next week or the week after. So interesting stuff. I see that PayPal had some good news this morning, so maybe Kim and her affection for PayPal will be rewarded. And as for those of us holding our Delics, there's a certain Irishman that he has a saying, $27 or bust. So I don't like the or bust part of that, but it'd be okay if that went from 9 to 27. So I did stick our Delics in my Groundhog portfolio for this year because I couldn't live with myself if it was a really big positive influence this year and I didn't have it. So there you are. It's an emotional non-core selection.
Mark, Marie Frank is telling us that SHLS might have been the second best performer in the portfolios.
Could be. I did notice. Is that on this page?
I'm not positive, but
didn't quite make it, but it just missed being on this
list. She had it in
list.
her portfolio last year, and she says that she picked it, and she thinks it might be the second best performer. Yeah.
And that's Shoals Technologies. Am I correct on that?
Shoals Technology, SHLS.
So it's I believe it's a solar company.
We're getting a good question from John, and I've been getting this question dozens of times. Mark, John wants to know, what is the beginning price for Groundhog 2024? If he wants to see the price that you use to buy the number of shares that you have, what price is that?
It should be the close of business Friday evening, and it should be 99% of the time the same as the opening on February 5th. And I do nothing more than just simply say to Y charts, tell me that price. So this particular portfolio, I just grabbed $62,500 worth of all of those. So it's one day into the contest. So that is the answer. The Friday night close, the Monday open, they should be the same. But that's what you should find.
And Mark, Marie is clarifying her comment now. She was not telling you that Shoals was the second best. She's nominating it for a Clearfield of the Year.
Well, I wasn't going to say anything, but in our electrifying future portfolio, I'm well aware that Shoals is our worst performing stock. So that's since June. I don't know about the whole year. All right.
Well, she's recommending it as Clearfield of the Year. So there you go.
Okay, she's getting an early start.
Yeah.
All right. So this is, again, we do this every week, but this is just for fun. It's just to kick out some different new names, release the hogs. This is one day into the Groundhog. In fact, I forgot to add, this should have one more markup here for 18, Groundhog 18. And just so you can see that there are some new names here that should be a whole lot of fun. I just love right down here in the middle, Antique Warehouse, one of our clubs from the mid-Michigan area. And I'm pretty sure Mary Reynolds is she affiliated with Antique Warehouse?
She's the president of Antique Warehouse, and she's also the president of the Mid-Michigan Model Club. And she's going to be thrilled to see her club and her own name on this top 40 list, even if it is only a day or two, Mark. Okay.
Well, cool. And then I think we should cue up the music from the movie Jaws, because look who's back in number one. And not by a small amount. And that's, I'm pretty sure they benefited from Super Microcomputer or something like that. Maybe Matt can check me on that.
That's where, Super Microcomputer went up a bunch yesterday. Yeah.
So that's most of the fuel behind that fire for broad assets.
So we'll have to figure out a way to play a background soundtrack in the bull session next week if they stay up there, Mark. Okay.
Okay. All right, so a bunch of new names. Welcome to the fray, and should be some good, clean fun. We should mention that Kevin Gologly actually did make the list with Montgomery County there.
All right.
All right, a little bit of housekeeping. We are approximately a month out from the February roundtable. As Ken said, it's actually going to be on March 5th, Tuesday, March 5th, and should be a lot of fun. And it'll be even more fun because the scorekeeper, who shall remain nameless, doesn't have the number one stock right now. Stay tuned.
I trust that you might.
Just give me a little more time. All right, just as a quick reminder, we have been putting together a real money portfolio during the bull sessions. We're referring to it as Buttonwood. And there's the portfolio so far. We will continue to build that out during the sessions. So come on back and watch us do that. Here's a reminder that we do archive all of the bull sessions and roundtables and educational sessions. You see one of those right here on YouTube. Just go to YouTube, Manifest Investing. If you can't find it, send me a note. And with that, we will close down with our reminder that the Super Bowl is coming. And in case anybody out there hasn't heard, Taylor Swift will be hanging out at the Super Bowl this year. But
I'm remembering a line from Saturday Night Live last weekend that no television program or no webinar or no anything else that goes to the general public cannot contain a reference to Taylor Swift. So there we are. We've met the law, Mark.
We have met the, okay. All right. And of course, those images up at the top, if you remember these commercials during Super Bowls of the past, I consider these to be national treasures. You've got the Career Builder monkeys. You've got the Apple commercial from 1984. You've got the Clydesdales and the Dalmatian from Budweiser. How about the Coca-Cola commercial with Mean Joe Green? And of course, the one with the little Jedi controlling the car with the remote. And one of my all-time favorites, and not because my wife works for Chrysler, the M&M commercial for the Chrysler 200 from a few years ago. Many of these are regarded as some of the best commercials of all time. So what will this year hold?
Mark, weren't the Talking Babies that they've recently brought back originally a Super Bowl commercial as well?
I think it was E-Trade, now Morgan Stanley, and they have been bringing them back a little bit. So,
and those commercials are some of my most favorite commercials in all of history. And I watched them today and feel real warm and fuzzy about them.
Yeah, I suspect we will be bringing them back here soon.
All right.
All right. All right, and this is just news from last night. Those of you that are familiar with the work of Toby Keith, he did pass away last night to stomach cancer. And in this household, anyhow, we're fans and tipping a red Solo cup in his general direction. We went to a number of his concerts. He actually had a restaurant in our neighborhood. And thank you, Toby. So with that, Ken,
That restaurant's still there?
It's not still there.
Oh, okay.
Steakhouse in our local mall, by the way. All right. So with that, I think we can pretty much shut down. These are just some extra slides. Again, if you need copies of the slides, or you can retrieve them either from the Manifest Forum or send an email to Mark R. at manifestinvesting.com if you want to take a closer look at some of those other slides right here. And we'd be happy to answer any more questions or anything that's on your minds. Anything else in the hopper, Ken?
Nope, sounds good, Mark. Thanks for coming, folks. It's appreciated.
All right, congratulations, Ann, the Orange Group from Orange County, California, and John Kimmel. Congratulations, everybody. Good work by the whole group. Take care.
Good night.
Good afternoon. See ya.